Hello, I'm Jason Solomons. Welcome to another edition of Seen Anything Good Lately, the podcast where the pros reveal what they love in film and TV and give you the toppest tips on what to watch.
In the last few days, I saw Riot.
I recently watched a series on Netflix called Kingdom.
And my guests on this edition you heard there are esteemed rock photographer Gered Mankowitz and former child star Thomas Turgoose, as well as taking many famous shots of legends from Jimi Hendrix to the Stones and Suzi Quatro. Gered has produced a new 6-part series on Sky Arts called Icon: Music Through the Lens, about the history and evolution of the art of rock photography. And Thomas, well, you know and love him as Sean from This Is England, and we find him all grown up now, with a very strong performance in new British movie Looted. I've known Tomo since his first ever press interviews for This Is England in 2006, so it's a pleasure to catch up with him for this show. We'll find out what Gered and Tomo have been watching right after I tell you if I've seen anything good lately. I've been catching a few films at the UK Jewish Film Festival this year. It's gone entirely online, which I think was a really good decision, not to sort of do that hybrid thing of being in physical cinemas as well. They just said, right, we're going online, none of this nonsense, that's where you're going to see it. And of course, it's still going on and going very strong with some great audiences and some really interesting works in the programme. The opening night gala was When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit, an adaptation of Judith Kerr's book about her family coming to the UK after fleeing Hitler. Judith went on to write The Tiger Who Came to Tea, and I'm sure anyone with kids will know that one. Judith died only last year here in the UK after an extraordinary career. The film, which she contributed on the screenplay to, is very polished. It's a charming German language adaptation directed by Oscar winner Caroline Link, and it gets that confusion of a child's point of view very well, about the fear of having to flee from home in 1933 Berlin and be without your fugitive father who's irascible and criticises Hitler's regime. There's the fear of leaving behind your favourite cuddly toy, which is the title of the film, and your favourite nanny. So the family has to leave their well-to-do life behind and travel to Switzerland and then to Paris, and they're always trying to fit in as Germans, as Jews, as newly poor refugees.
Das ist die Anna aus Deutschland. Der Flüchtling. Sie geht jetzt mit uns in die Klasse.
Herzlich willkommen, Anna.
I really liked it. It could have done with a bit more oomph, some more incident perhaps, to make it a must-see family film. My kids watched it all the way through with the subtitles and everything, so they quite liked it, but I can't say everyone was bowled over by it. I have also seen the closing night film of the UK Jewish Film Festival called Honey Mood, a romantic comedy I enjoyed very much, written and directed by Talia Lavie, about a bride and groom arguing their way through their wedding night in their very nice paid-for hotel room and in the streets of Jerusalem. It's funny and honest about romance and weddings, and it's very nicely played by actors Avigail Harar and Ran Dunker. You can still catch the film on November the 19th, and after it I host a really nice Q&A with its director Talia Lavie, so just go to ukjewishfilm.org to see it. Okay, let's hear from Thomas Turgoose first. He's best known, forever known, as Sean, the little skinhead from Shane Meadows' This Is England, the 2006 film that became a phenomenon, a cult phenomenon first, and then a TV show that launched the careers of those including Vicky McClure, Stephen Graham, Johnny Harris, Joe Hartley, Joe Gilgun, several more.
On 3 times today.
Woodstock's that way, pal. Who's picking on you, lad?
Army.
Harvey? I've got one of those for you. My name is Harvey. Honestly, mate, you look sterling.
People going here, people going there, people going out, people...
Cheers for today. It's been the best day of my life.
Come on, you are more than welcome. Hey! I've got someone I want you to meet.
You a proper little skinhead then, yeah?
Tomo, has grown up on our screens, appearing also in films such as Summer's Town for Shane and Eden Lake, and then disappearing for a bit and returning more recently with Swimming with Men and a spot in Game of Thrones. He's on good form in new British film Looted, playing Leo, who's the toxic best mate of lead character Rob, Charlie Palmer Rothwell, persuading him to steal cars while Rob's actually stealing away Leo's girlfriend Kaz, played by Morgan Polanski. Yes, the daughter of. It's a return to the sort of social realist indie debut we're used to seeing Thomas in, and he looks happy to be back. Although, as I point out, his character Leo seems fun enough to begin with, but ultimately he's got a violent and dangerously explosive side.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we went for, really. Sort of the unpredictability of Leo. I took a lot from what Stephen Graham does in most of his things. He's sort of, he's got this very nice sensitive side, but if you cross him, then he can really cause you some trouble. So yeah, I mean, it was.
I suspected it. I thought, but that's a very good compliment. I didn't want to sort of say to you, oh, you reminded me of Stephen Graham. He's obviously the finest screen actor we've got at the moment.
No, that'd be the best compliment ever. So I would have taken it. No, but I've looked up to Stephen from before I knew him as an actor. I look up to Stephen as Uncle Stephen. So yeah, I mean, to take what he puts into his performances and sort of try my hardest to put it into the character that that I was given with Leo.
Was it a bit more like going back to working with Shane, or the first early times of working with Shane?
Yeah, in a way. Again, with the freedom that we're given, and a lot of the scenes was improvised. There was a lot of trust. I think that's the key thing for me. When you're doing a heavily improvised piece, you've really got to have trust in the director, and you've really got to have trust in the actors that are opposite you as well, because they might throw something at you mid-scene that you've really got to you've got to react to how you would. It can be risky, I think, doing a lot of improvisation, but I think we really hit the nail on the head with this one.
Mate, the amount of money that he's just offered us, it'd be stupid not to do that. He'll be in and out, mate.
Take JP then.
We'll be home by 10. I'm not taking him.
Why?
Because he can't drive.
Oh, sorry, mate.
Right?
What's this?
Gold.
Why don't you ask for money?
It's a tough market, you div. Gold's worth more than pounds nowadays.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Since when do you know anything about gold?
Since when do you know anything about anything?
I know everything. Go on.
All right, Mum and Dad.
And I was very impressed with Morgan Polanski, I have to say. I mean, I know she's got quite a thoroughbred name there as well, but I mean, she was really impressive in the way she performed, how she was kind of free. I thought she brought a different sort of texture between the two of you.
Yeah, it was that sort of the middle piece between the rose between two thorns, really.
Yes.
She's really sweet, and getting to work with her again, like you've just said, that the family that she comes from, it's just immense talent.
Did you ever cross your mind, and maybe if it hasn't crossed your mind, I'm going to make it cross your mind now, that Roman Polanski's going to be watching this and thinking, oh, who's that kid?
Well, that was the thing when we was on set. Morgan had come in and she'd be like, "Oh yeah, I've just been on FaceTime to my dad," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's pretty normal, I guess. Yeah, I've just been on FaceTime to my dad. He's at work on the oil refinery." Yeah, hopefully your dad likes it. I'm sure he will.
Yeah, well, I think he should be very proud of her, because I think she's really terrific in it, as are you all. How have you found it? Have you found it, getting parts? Because I don't see you as much as I'd like to. I really enjoyed the Swimming with Men that you were in. That was a really sweet little part that you had there.
Yeah, Swimming with Men. It was good fun. It's kind of, I think I'm going through a period now where, I think when we last spoke, must have been 10 years?
Yeah, God, is it? I know it was Summer's Town for sure. I'm trying to think. It must have been other time. I
it
feel
might-
like you've
yeah, it
always
might
been
have been
around in
Summer's
my life, but that's because, you were 6 when I met you.
Well, as you know, I worked from the age of 13 right up until the age of 18, and I never really spent any time at home. I never really saw any of my friends. So when I turned 18, I kind of decided, right, I'm going to have I didn't say the words, I'm going to have a gap year. I'm not going to have time off, but I was enjoying going out and drinking, to be honest. And I was drinking a lot with my friends, and I was going out and I was having fun, and I was going on holidays, and I wasn't putting in the work that I should have been. And it was only really when I moved in with my now wife, it kind of struck me, and I was like, wow, I've got a mortgage to pay now, and I need to start growing up. And that's when I started really working hard on the scripts that I was sent and really putting more into life. And now, pretty much over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, I've really been pretty much non-stop working. So
do you feel you could have gone badly off the rails and that you're almost swerved a real bad one?
Yeah, I think I could have done. I was going out a lot. I was getting up to things I shouldn't have been doing, and I do a lot of DJing, which sort of like sucked me out of the film world, because what comes with DJing is a lot of drinking and a lot of traveling, and I was sort of not working on the scripts as hard as I could have been. So maybe I held myself back a little bit, but I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what I wanted out of life, and again I really realized you do get out of life what you put in.
Do you do acting lessons?
I'm not saying I regret all the things that I did.
No, God, you should enjoy it. I think it's really really healthy that you still look all right. You could be ravaged if you're one of those internet things, like you never guess what Sean from This Is England looks like now, and you're all fat and horrible.
Yeah, then versus now. Yeah, God, it could have been.
Could have gone Macaulay Culkin on us.
I mean, I learned a lot about myself, and it's so like now I find that when I'm on set and I'm working with these amazing people, I'm learning so much and I'm taking so much on. I'm just sort of, I feel like I'm learning the craft more now, because when I was a kid, as you know, I was like, I just got on with it. I just did it, and I didn't really have to think about it. Whereas now, as a man, I've got to think about the things that I'm saying and doing and the way that I'm presenting myself on set. And yeah, it's kind of like, and it's an enjoying experience. It's an exciting experience. It's just I'm really enjoying my time now as an adult on set.
I have to say that I've obviously followed you and seen you, but I thought in this one, in Looted, it was really lovely. You looked very relaxed and you looked very, very you, this part, and you'd really grown into it, and I was really proud. So I'm really glad that I could catch up with you, Thomas. What have you been doing? Have you seen anything good lately, Thomas Turgoose?
Have I seen anything good lately? I recently watched a series on Netflix called Kingdom. It's about a family of MMA fighters in LA. Basically, I struggle to remember the name of the main actor. It'll come to me. It will come to me. But basically, he's a world famous MMA fighter, and he's got two kids, and they're sort of like being forced into that world, and maybe they don't want to. One of them's struggling with drug addiction, one of them's struggling with their sexuality, and how he struggles with sexuality in such a masculine world is such an issue, which is ridiculous. So yeah, that was great.
I haven't seen Kingdom. That's a good shout.
It is really good.
What do you and the missus watch? The lovely Charlotte.
She's into like EastEnders and Coronation Street, but we like a lot of travel. We watch a lot of travel documentaries and things. We've just started watching An Idiot Abroad, obviously Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant and Carl Pilkington, which I think Carl Pilkington's one of the most amazing men I've ever seen. So we're watching that. We watched there was a thing called Race Across the World.
Yes,
it was on BBC. Have you seen that?
Yes. Well, I didn't stick with it all, but I thought, wow, what a good idea.
Yeah, it's a great concept. So yeah, we're really into sort of traveling because we like to travel ourselves as well. So we sort of see these places that people visit, and we're like, well, maybe we should go there next. But just not at the minute.
How fantastic! Well, obviously not now. That's
that's
why we watch films, isn't it, Tom? So we can travel in our head. Do you watch what all your old muckers do? Like Vicky McClure. Do you watch Line of Duty? Do you catch up with Stephen? Whatever he's in.
Me and Charlotte are obsessed with that. I don't know why I didn't think of that. So I'd watched the first couple of series before, and then Charlotte watched it from series 5. Is that the one that Stephen Graham did?
Yes.
Series 5.
Oh God, I hope I get that right.
I was watching that, and Charlotte was one of them. It was one of them where she was on her phone and she sort of sits like that, and she goes, and then the phone goes down, and she's like, "Oh, what's going on now? What's happening?" So then she went back and watched it from the first series, which she loved. So yeah, I'm excited for the next series of that. I think they've just about finished.
They're filming it. We had Johnny Owen on the show last week.
Oh, Johnny, yeah. I love Johnny.
Yes, I thought you would. And yes, he said that she's out in Belfast filming it in this secure bubble, so he doesn't get to see her very much. She comes back and she's allowed to sort of disinfect herself, give him a kiss, and go back to film the rest of the Line of Duty.
Yeah, it's all a bit of a unknown territory for everyone at the moment, isn't it? It's kind of like just the idea of anyone starting production now is just like, understandably, a lot of production companies are just saying, we're not going to start up now because there's just no point, because it's the future's so unpredictable at the minute. So it's kind of like, yeah.
Thomas, it's been brilliant catching up with you. Really pleased to see you in Looted, and really I thought you were back on top form. Really beautiful to see.
You,
have you heard from Shane? I haven't seen Shane for a while. Shane Meadows, your
Yeah,
your main guy.
Yeah, well, I'd not spoken to Shane for a bit of a while, and then that whole thing came about. I don't know if you saw it online or in the press. One of my friends got hold of my phone and tweeted. He went on my Twitter. We was at a festival, and someone come up to me at like 7 p.m. I'd left my phone in my tent, and someone come up to me and said, "Oh, congratulations, mate!" And I was like, "Oh, what on the wedding?" I said, "Oh, we've been married for a year now, but oh, thanks." And he went, "No, on This Is England," and I was like, "Oh, I mean, it's been out for 10 years now, but yeah, cheers, thanks." And he went, "No, on the new series, congratulations." I was like, "What, are we making a new one?" And then it turns out that my mate put on my Twitter, "Oh, we're buzzing to confirm that we're making a new This Is England." And then that just blew up. And then Shane texted me saying, "Dude, what the fuck?" And I was like, "Oh my God." And then we just started chatting again. And I met up with him pre-lockdown. Yeah, we had a Wagamama, and just, I know he's busy writing something else away from This Is England at the moment, which is exciting. Huge fan of the virtues of what him and Jack Thorne had created.
It was brilliant, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh my God. Stephen's performance in that was heartbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, that was absolutely superb, actually.
I probably say this every time I see Stephen in anything. I say that's the best thing he's ever done, and he just goes on in leaps and bounds. But yeah, The Virtues was so good.
So when he said, "Oh, cheers, we're making you're making another This England," the Shane was like, "Well, I haven't written anything." Did he say, "Well, we're not going to do one," or did he say, "Well,
no,
you never know"?
Because I was straight on the like, "Dude, I'm so sorry." Like my mate got hold of my phone because I thought he was going to kick off. I thought he was going to be like, "What?" But then he just turned around and he said, "You know what? It's so nice that people still care because it's been so long since we last did one." And Shane's always said, he's never going to say it's the end of it. He doesn't know whether we'll make another one, but what he did say is he said it's so nice that people still care about the characters and care about what we've created. So, and it is nice. It is nice that people still care about it because I think it's been 6 years now since we released one.
Where did we get up to? 90?
Yeah, This Is England 90, yeah. So yeah, Woody and Lol finally got married and everyone lived happily ever after, other than Combo, Stephen. So yeah, I guess I don't know. It'd be good to make another one.
But look, where we are now, you could never even imagine where we are. This is Brexit. This is COVID. You can have a whole bloody thing.
Yeah. But there's no doubt in my mind because a small part of me says we've created something so beautiful and people love it. We'd hate to ruin that. But when Shane gets his thinking cap on, he's going to create something that's...
Do you know what? You thought that every time, there's going to be another, in 86, you're going to ruin it. But it almost gets better and better because you get older and older, we get older and older. And it's something to sort of judge ourselves by, judge a yardstick of the nation and watching you grow up. So it's probably your fault. People be asking you about that, when you're in your 70s and your 80s, you're going to do another one.
I hope so. Yeah, it's so like from when we first met 13 years ago, when the film was released, it was kind of like, because I never knew what was going to happen. I had no idea that 14 years later people would still be stopping me in the street for photos. I had no idea that people that would care about it so much. So yeah, it's just crazy how it all turned out.
Yeah, look, these things are very special. They're very rare as well. It just doesn't happen to everyone. So you take it as a blessing and you live with it. Really, congratulations on Looted, Thomas. Brilliant to see you, and keep practicing and chipping away, mate.
Chipping away, as it were. Thanks, mate. Nice to catch up.
And Looted is streaming now on BFI Player, Curzon Home Cinema, Amazon, and several more. I've mainly been watching the US election lately. We all have, surely. It was agonising, wasn't it? I watched it on Sky News, on BBC News, on CNN, on Fox News, wherever I could, just waiting for it to be different on another channel, which bizarrely it was. With various interpretations and reactions and tallies, depending on how you take your readings of these things, which I thought was rather strange and bizarre. It was slow, wasn't it? I mean, someone mentioned to me that now the Americans can finally understand the exquisite torture of Test cricket. But, it was building, and it was shaping, and it was gripping drama before it became a farcical soap opera. Of course, it's still going on. I was very keen to see John Oliver's Last Week Tonight, which I always catch on Sky Comedy, and it was finally good to see John smile properly after 4 years of really hard work trying to satirise Trump without really being able to nail him. It's been very frustrating watching that excellent comedian and very smart show full of writers to land any punches that counted. But credit to John Oliver and his team, and to me as a viewer. We've all kept going, we've kept tutting and kept hoping, and now we can breathe and get some sense back, and maybe we can start taking the mickey out out of American politics properly again. Satire might work. Look, there's still a few months of Trump tantrums to go. I honestly can't wait till his pinched mouth and punchable face disappear off my screens forever. And that'll be the best thing I've seen, not lately, but in a long, long while. Alright, bit of politics there. It's more humane common sense than politics, frankly, isn't it? But on Sky Arts right now, a new series has begun. Icon, Music Through the Lens, examining the craft and the legacy of the underappreciated art of rock photography. It's an excellent overview of the profession, full of stories and images and music, chronicling a social history as well as an aesthetic one. It's very well put together and produced by my guest, Gered Mankowitz. Now, Gered has a bit of film blood in him too. He's the son of famous British screenwriter Wolf Mankowitz, who penned important London films such as Espresso Bongo, A Kid for Two Farthings, and The Day the Earth Caught Fire. And as well as that, Gered now appears in front of the camera in his own series, Icon, alongside Terry O'Neill, Kevin Cummins, Anton Corbijn, and many more well-known and lesser-known photographers, and lots of big stars, all telling the stories behind how they captured and created images that have over the years become iconic. So I began by asking Gered about his own pictures, the ones that are now famous, of Jimi Hendrix.
It's a strange story, and part of the problem was that in my youthful arrogance or, I don't know, confidence or self-belief or whatever, I made this conscious decision to photograph him in black and white because I wanted to take him very seriously. I wanted to treat him with dignity and gravitas, and he was important to me, although he hadn't had a hit. I mean, he just arrived, really. But he was clearly an extraordinary musician and a remarkable looking person. And he wore the clothes of the day with such panache. It was as though everything at that moment, 1967, was designed for him. I mean, it was just quite extraordinary. But I was adamant that I wanted to shoot him in black and white. And Chaz Chandler, who was his manager, who was a friend of mine who gave me the gig, who asked me to work with Jimmy, he seemed cool with it. I mean, I don't know whether he fully appreciated what it was. And when I did those pictures, the famous picture, came out to us. We knew we'd got a great portrait of Jimmy, and we were going to try and make that the cover. But the record company was adamant that there had to be a color photograph on the cover. And Chaz, either, I don't know, because I've never discussed it with him really, but either he just agreed with them or didn't want to put up a fight. It seemed irrelevant. So they did another session with somebody else, and I didn't get the cover. And my pictures were sort of relegated to my bottom drawer. It wasn't until really the 90s that the image became famous.
But I suppose that's it, isn't it? When you look at Icon, I mean, and the series is called Icon, it's about what makes something iconographic. And some of that is time, and some of that is the story that, that I didn't know, but Jimmy was not long for this world after you took those pictures. 2 or 3 years later, he was dead. And you look at the Tupacs and the Amy's and the Hendrixes and the Cobain, the Kurt Cobain, the Bob Marley. Early death helps promote them as an icon, but only if you've got the right photo that captures them at a certain time. It's a combination of those things, and you can't predict them. In making
Icon, Music Through the Lens, we discussed this with every photographer. Every interview, we discuss what makes an image iconic, what makes a picture iconic. And everybody, I think, agrees in one way or the other that an iconic image grows. You don't know you've taken it. You don't know it's iconic. I always try to do the best portrait that I could. I always try to photograph the person, but I never ever imagined for a split second that the picture would have any life beyond the following 3 or 4 weeks, months, maybe, if I was lucky, or whatever album or single I was working for. The fact is that it's a combination of the power of the subject and their music.
An iconic photograph is indelible. It always stays with you. Music photography is like the music itself. It's part of our cultural heritage. It's part of our shared identity as a people.
Besides the music itself, these photographs are the most important visual document of these musical artists.
I feel like I'm documenting musical history.
What I do is a form of music. It's just music for the eyes.
The first episode of Icon is really about music imagery. It's called On Camera, and it's about that making of the music image. The second episode focuses on live music photography, and it's a fantastic episode. It's like you're exhausted at the end of it.
Oh my God, there's so much energy in that one.
so much energy. And then the third episode is about album covers, which is so important and is an episode that I'm particularly thrilled by, because album covers are so important to me, and as a consumer of music, album covers were so important to me, and so that's a really important issue. And then episode 4 is the editorial one, which of course is key.
Yes, it's about spotting on the contact sheet the image that you've got.
Yeah, and so the photo editors are important, but also I think what's really key to music photography generally is that it's the editorial magazines, the rise of magazines, music magazines, that really gave photographers the opportunity to contribute and to focus on music, because suddenly there was a lot of media that wanted music photography. And so a lot of photographers got their start in music press. So number 4 is really important. Number 5 is on the wall, and then number 6 is the future, is Instagram. And
that's where I mean, obviously you've taken us through brilliantly, and I really love the way that the series is sort of mapped out like that. It's a very smart way of doing it, but it's the right way of doing it, because you mentioned those album covers, they become iconic in themselves as artifacts. It's not just the photo, it's the music they kind of cover over as well, and they contain inside, or maybe they're double albums, and the stories that we put with them, because we take these things with us, we have them on our shelves, they've been through university with them, we've skinned up joints on them, we've kind of passed them around parties, everyone's got them. So those are fascinating. And then there's the art bit of it, and what worries me is the future there that you point out. I haven't seen that episode, but I was going to ask, that we don't have album covers anymore. We don't really have CD covers anymore. We don't even have magazines. We don't have your Kerangs, your Mojos, your Qs so much anymore. Where are we seeing music photography now? What would you do if you were the young Gered Mankowitz now? What would you do?
Gosh, I don't know what I would have done. What I do know, and what's been really exciting, is the number of young photographers who are working in music now, today, even with lockdown. They're working in music today, and they are shooting with digital technology on phones. They're using Polaroid again. They're experimenting. They're on the road, and their energy and their enthusiasm, the way they embrace the technology, which is second nature to them, such an effort for people of my generation, but for them, it's second nature. The artists are posting several times a day. Well, these photographers are posting every day and putting up wonderful work. So I was greatly encouraged. I mean, I don't know what the future holds, who does? But I feel very positive that music photography is going to live on. As long as there is music, there are going to be fantastic committed photographers recording it. And that's brilliant.
It seems to need it. As music obviously needs listeners and it needs fans, but it seems to need somehow that over the years, you photographers have put yourself in as very much part of the conversation in order to record music. There's symbiotic kind of a sort of disciplines, I would say, artistic disciplines.
I think that's true. I haven't really thought about it, but I think that's absolutely right. And I think that it's an important part of it. But I mean, I remember back in the olden days, I remember one of my first records that I ever bought, Stay, by Maurice Williams and the Zodiacs in 1960. I had no idea what Maurice Williams looked like. I didn't know that the Zodiacs were 4 blokes. I thought there was a woman in there because there was this fantastic falsetto, which I loved, and I just thought, and I had no idea until I went into a record shop. I don't know what I was going to buy. And there behind him was a poster. And there was Maurice Williams and the Zodiacs. And suddenly I went, oh, photograph. There was this link, and it meant so much. When I first heard the Beatles on Radio Luxembourg on some bloody awful mono headphone under my bedsheet, I had no idea what they looked like. I didn't know where they were from. I made assumptions, ridiculous assumptions, but that was what it was like. And then the music, so photography became the only way for a lot of fans to actually begin to relate to the artists that they were listening to.
And I think that's obtained all the way through the hip hop movements. It brings us closer to the artists that we're hearing. I think it's absolutely made absolutely clear by Icon Through the Lens, which is on Sky Arts, which I recommend. I'm going to recommend to everyone, because I think if you like music, if you like photography, if you like pop culture in a way, it's perfect. So congratulations on that, Gered Mankowitz. So people are going to watch that. But what are you watching, Gered? Have you seen anything good lately?
I have. In the last few days, I saw White Riot. Have you seen White Riot?
I have. We had the director, Rubika Shah, on the show. Terrific work from someone who wasn't around at all during that period, which is what I think I really liked about it. It was someone approaching it as history rather than someone who'd lived through it. And presumably you knew most of those artists. I don't know if you were there at the Rock Against Racism gig, Gered.
Well, I was, actually, because Red Saunders, who was the sort of, I wouldn't want to say he was the star of the film, but he was very important to the film and, of course, absolutely integral to Rock Against Racism. He was my closest friend, and we shared studios. So we were sharing a studio at that time where Ra was sort of born, actually. And I was involved, but only on the very, very fringe. I mean, I was involved quite a lot on the fringe. I supported them. I helped make contacts for them. So I knew all those people. And
I mean, they were very underground, very underfunded, very sort of ad hoc punk aesthetic.
Oh, yeah, there was no funding. I mean, I don't think there was any funding, which is why I was on the phone to people saying, can you lend us a front line or a back line or whatever line we needed? No, it was fantastically ad hoc. But the thing is, its inspiration was the fascists. There were fascists on the street. There was this, and I found that looking at the film, White Riot, I found it inspiring and so distressing because time has sort of softened the horrifying impact that the National Front and the British Union of Fascists and the foul Martin Webster and John Tyndall and all, they were absolute horrors. And what they were doing to the youth was frightening. And the idea of bringing youth and music together, black and white, unite and fight. And I mean, it was just absolutely wonderful. And so it was exciting to see that.
Do you think she got it, given that it was not something she knew about at all growing up, and it was done through archive and trying to get through it, that it captured that time well, and as you say, brought it back? It did to me. I mean, I was alive, but a bit young, but seeing all that, remember how, well, not to put too fine a point, how shit London looked in the 70s in parts.
Didn't it? Wasn't it? I mean, obviously it was. I mean, I was thinking about, 1977, Red and I was sharing this studio with Red in Great Windmill Street in Soho. And it was shit. I mean, we loved it, but it was absolute shit. I mean, Ham Yard was behind us. And that was the great scene club where the High Numbers, the Who had played back in the early part of the 60s, was a horrible strip club, foul strip club.
You could smell it from outside.
Oh, it was disgusting. There were meth drinkers there. There were 3-card trick guys on the street. There was porn in the window. There were prostitutes on the street. It was really grim, and we loved it, of course, because it was Soho and it was full of characters. But it was really a horrible place. But seeing White Riot was really distressing and awe-inspiring, and what a fantastic movement.
Oh, I'm really glad you enjoyed it. How did you see it? Because it was on a few cinemas, not many. You had to watch it online and then pay for it through Modern Films. They had this quite new distribution technique where if you watched the film, you gave it some money, but you also paid for the local cinema in a way to have it. They've done some quite new things, Modern Films, with it.
Yeah, we watched it. Actually, I think it was broadcast the other day because we only watched it over the weekend. So I think it was broadcast was it broadcast on the BBC at the last week?
Oh, it may well have now got there. Yeah, they've done some really interesting things. They sort of had some premieres, and and they've done it all in this sort of locked down world. So
yes,
been quite innovative with it.
Remarkable. And I haven't spoken to Red since I've seen it. I sent him a text whilst I was watching it, but I do see him a couple of times a year, and we touch base, as they say.
Yeah, great. Well, the young lady who directed it should be very pleased to know about your approval. I think that'll be something, a feather in her cap, to get it someone who knows it so well that they felt that sort of rush of remembrance as well. Were you actually at the gig itself in the park?
Well, we were. we were on the right of the stage in what I think was laughingly called a sort of VIP area. And Julia and I were there with our daughter, who was only about 2. And we've got a wonderful photograph of our daughter, Jessie, bopping away, dancing away. She loved dance. She still does, actually. And dancing away. And and we didn't march. I don't know why we didn't march. Maybe because we were...
Well, you had a 2-year-old as well. It wouldn't be so easy.
Maybe that was it. And but we were there, and it was an extraordinary period in history, very, very important. And I think she did your Rebecca Shah, I think, did a wonderful job, and I loved it. And I'm even get a credit at the end, which I was thrilled about, because 2 or 3 of my pictures are used in it somewhere. So I was very proud and thrilled and humbled to be part of it.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. Really good story. And a good pick for seeing anything good lately there, Gered. Anything else that you've been watching? What have you been doing down there in Cornwall?
I tell you what, we're quite keen on Walter Presents.
Is it on BBC 4, is it? Or Channel 4? Channel 4, isn't it? Yeah.
And we're quite keen on Walter Presents because it's interesting. I mean, the whole Scandi Noir thing, which I guess started, 6-7 years ago, I don't know, I have terrible sense of time.
Borgen and the bridge and all of that.
Which we loved, enjoyed enormously. And that's given birth to this extraordinary Walter Presents thing, which brings in, as you know very well, foreign, mainly European television series. And it's very interesting, not just because they're often fantastic. The Border, which we've been watching, particularly the second series, which is Polish, has been very good, I think, very interesting.
I haven't seen that one, Border, no.
The Border, there are two series. I think it's definitely worth watching. We enjoyed it. And we watched something else on that called Moscow Noir.
Yes, I've seen a bit of that. That looks great. I only saw, one bit of it, actually. And I thought, I must see a bit more of that one. There's another one. There's a Budapest Noir as well, that they're all getting in on this. But I think the Moscow one looks really... looks like there's a lot of noir to be done in Moscow.
Yes, well, I mean, and although I think Moscow Noir takes a little bit of a while to get going, it's very entertaining. And of course, earlier on last year and into, I think the last series came out at the beginning of this year, it was Berlin Babylon, or Babylon Berlin.
Yeah, the huge production, that one.
And it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, that was really good, beautifully constructed and beautifully performed, and it was marvelous. So we've been watching a lot of that, and Succession, of course. Succession is just fantastic and so good at the moment, in a way so current because of the terrible Trumps.
This is my vision. I take over, you two under me.
Under you. Can we think about it?
Yeah, of course.
I thought about it. Fuck you.
This family's broken, and that has consequences.
Kick out the old man, in with the new guard.
Where you been?
I was meeting about a prospective job.
With your father's enemy?
Disagreeing with Dad is not treason.
You want this enough to go to war with your family?
It's rebellion. Sabotage. Deliberate attempt to undermine my whole business.
That's the death pit. Take a look.
I feel like I might not like it in the death pit.
Stock's gone below 130.
We could death spiral here.
Who's in charge right now?
It's my company. You are a fucking nobody.
You come from a big family yourself, did you? You had quite a few brothers and sisters, didn't you?
I had 3 brothers. So there were 4 of us. I was the eldest. Yes, it was a sort of pretty chaotic household. My youngest brother is 14 years younger than me, so I almost left home by the time he was born. But yes, for a while there were 3 of us rampaging around and causing a certain amount of chaos and stress, I think, from my parents.
Yeah, no, I don't, because it's obviously what's brilliant about Succession is that anyone who's got a family appreciate, even though very few of them grow up with super yachts and massive houses and all that money, but everyone's got those family dynamics. They play out. They're just exaggerated and made. Well, hopefully not everyone's family is as bitter and twisted towards each other as that. But I think people do feel the politics within there, and that's what people appreciate and understand so well.
Yes, I think also it's beautifully written, very well constructed, and the acting is fantastic. Yeah. And you know, you can getting that, all those elements right, a story that just draws you in, fantastic acting, such powerful acting. So we love that, and eager for COVID to pass, even if it's just so that we can get another.
Yes, I'm with you. We want season 3 of that. Where do you watch these things going? Obviously, the quality of image is probably very important to you. Do you have a massive telly? Do you sit down in front of? Or?
Yeah, we watch on a big telly. I mean, I've never felt comfortable watching on a phone or iPad. We watch together. It's very much a shared experience. Our television is something that Julia and we watch in the evening after dinner. And
do you argue over what to watch? Do you sort of zoom over that Netflix thing and think, oh, we'll watch a bit of that, and then get to you've done an hour of discussing what to watch and not actually doing it?
Well, occasionally, I'll say, why don't we give this a try? And then after about 20 minutes, Julia quietly gets up and she says, I think I'm going to leave this one to you or whatever. But no, generally, I mean, we talk about it quite a lot. What are we going to watch? And then we tend to watch a series over several nights. We're tired. By the end of the day, we're tired, and an hour or an hour and a half really sort of does us. So we tend not to watch movies. We tend to watch, I guess you'd call them box sets. Mm-hmm.
Just enough bingeableness to want you to come back. It's very important, isn't it, to have that thing that you want to watch. You want to do it together. There are those ones where say your wife Julia will say no, leave it to you, and you'll go, well, I guess that means I've got to go watch this in my own time. If I want to watch it, I get that a lot, which is lucky because it's partly my job, so it's fine. But I'd much prefer one that we can both come to a consensus about and both love. I mean, it becomes a real shared experience.
Yes, it's very important to us. I mean, that's what we do. I mean, we're about half an hour from Plymouth, which is where our nearest cinema is. And it's a multiplex, and they tend to have most of the stuff, but what they don't have is they don't have the good art movie stuff. But to be honest with you, I mean, the last thing we went to see in the cinema was, I think, 1917, which we thought was terrible.
You didn't like that one? No.
No, I thought it was awful. And
why is that? Is it because it was too much of a trick?
Yes, because the trick dominated everything else about how it was made. And that's just, what's the point? I mean, really, it didn't work for me. I mean, I'm sort of fascinated about the the behind the scenes movie of how it was made and everything. And I'm fascinated by the making of these things, of course, but actually at the end of the day, I thought that the drama, the story, the excitement, I thought was spoilt by the trick. And I didn't think the trick was particularly effective.
Yeah, well, you grew up in, I don't know if you grew up on movie sets, but you certainly grew up with movies. Maybe you went to your dad's premieres, I don't know, but he made some of my favorite. Well, he wrote some of my favorite movies. I'm from Espresso Bongo and The Day the Earth Caught Fire, which is perhaps my favorite London sci-fi of all time. I don't know if you always knew about the image and behind the scenes.
Yes, I mean, from quite an early age, we'd go down. He'd take me on set. I mean, I went on the set of Espresso Bongo. I met Cliff Richard, whatever that was, 1957,
58, yeah.
Which was a good 15 years before I photographed him, which was quite funny. I did a lot of covers for Cliff in the 70s. But and I loved that. I loved the whole movie making process. I loved what seemed to me from the outside as being this fantastic collaborative machine, everybody working together. But then in the 60s, I sort of assumed that my photography would lead me to a career as a director, a filmmaker at least. Mm. And then I went and did shot stills, or what was called special stills, on a couple of movies. And I was so horrified by the madness and the insanity and the ghastliness of being on set for a long period. I mean, visiting it is one thing, glamorous and exciting and fun. But actually being on a movie day after day after day and seeing all the terrible petty squabbles and the terrible prima donna behavior and it was just too ghastly for words. And I couldn't get back to music quick enough.
Well, I suppose you don't have so many people to control as well. If a movie director is like an army, isn't it, that you've got to command as well? So it's kind of much simpler in a way to have maybe you've got a couple of assistants doing your work, and you're so much closer. Even when you're directing, you're not as close to the subject as you as a photographer would be. You've got the cameraman in the way, you've got the makeup girls all going in the way, so you're much more intimate as a photographer.
Yes, and photography and that's a key word. Photography is an incredibly intimate process, and that's part of what I love about it. And I think that comes across in, just going back for a second to in Icon Music Through the Lens. I think that intimacy is really important and is played out in so many of the images, the great images that we see. So yes, it is an intimate process. And I think what I really learned was that you can't cope with lots of madness. You have to deal with the madness that you understand. And I've always somehow managed to cope with the madness of the music industry and quite enjoyed a lot of it. And
it's lovely hearing those memories that you have of Soho. You must have almost a heyday for foreign movies. You obviously like them now with your Walter Presents It, etc. But the time when people used to queue around the block for the new Fellini or the new Godard or the new Truffaut, God, I wish we still had that excitement about the foreign movies. Still, it must have been exciting.
It was, and the new Bond, for instance.
Oh my God, yes. Well, they would probably still queue for that. At the moment, they'd be so desperate for it.
Well, I mean, big West End movies were events. You'd go to, I don't know, the Odeon Leicester Square was a great favorite. And it was an event. It was only very slightly less of an event than going to the theatre. It was a really big deal. You go to the West End to see it on a big screen with fantastic sound and the Wurlitzer organ and the girls selling Kiora Sun Crush Orange or whatever it was called. It was an event and it was lovely, and queuing was part of that. And I'm sure you don't remember, you're too young, but have you any recollection through other people, if not your own, of the people who used to entertain the queues?
Oh my gosh, they do pop up. Yes, I do remember going with my grandparents to the Odeon queuing, and there would be a sort of guy who would always chain himself up and sort of an escapologist in front of us in the queue. And I remember very, very vividly seeing him and thinking that must hurt, and the sort of indentations on his skin. Being absolutely shocked by him. So yes, I do remember him, but I know there are many more stories of those people.
They were fantastic buskers. There was one guy, there was the Plaza Cinema on the corner of Lower Regent Street and Jermyn Street. And there was one guy, old man in a terrible old raincoat, and that was his pitch. And what he would do is he'd walk up and down the queue and he'd mutter and he'd announce, you're going to see something now, you're really going to see something now. And then finally, when he'd sort of got everybody's attention, he'd go into the gutter and he'd put a matchbox into the gutter, and then he'd very carefully walk about 10 paces up the street, and then he'd trot towards the matchbox, which he would then jump over with great ceremony, and he'd go, ta-da! Everybody was sort of weeping with laughter and would give him, a few pence. It was lovely. I mean, it was probably the most ghastly life for the poor chap, but it was lovely for us.
Listen, he got a clap and he got a laugh, and in a way that's all we're doing any of this for, is to get a reaction these days. The reaction's going to be fabulous to Icon Life Through the Lens. I really do. I think it's going to do really well on Sky Arts. I hope people will watch it and learn quite a lot about music and photography and the life, and be quite inspired to do it. As you say, there's a future in it somehow. I don't know if I don't know if anyone ever said that to you when you were a kid. Don't do this. Get a proper job.
Yes, my dad said that.
Well, he never had a proper job, so in the end, you did all right out of it. Gered Mankowitz, thank you so much for joining me. It was lovely to see you and lovely to speak to you, and lovely to see your series. And thank you so much for all your recommendations on Seen Anything Good lately.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been lovely talking to you. I've really enjoyed it. Lovely to see you as well.
And Icon Music Through the Lens is on Sky Arts right now. All of which brings us to the end of this edition of Seen Anything Good Lately. I'm still not finished with the Queen's Gambit, although I must say I'm amazed by how so many people are talking about it like it's the best thing ever. I've done 4 episodes, and look, I confess I nearly gave up after 2. In fact, I stated boldly to my wife that if episode 3 didn't pick it up, I was out and she would be left to watch it on her own. I guess those are the sort of conversations lots of people have, you know? It's like, oh, I'm going to stick with that, or that's one for you, or I'm going to go watch something else. But I did like episode 3, so I'm still here, but I can't say I'm as enraptured about it as everybody else, as the general vibe seems to be. I guess it's like the Tiger King, you know, which the whole of the world was watching as Lockdown 1 hit. The Queen's Gambit is the hit of Lockdown 2, and everyone's watching it at the same time. So it's no great discovery, but I am surprised by how many people are absolutely loving it. Yes, there's nice dresses and hotel locations and great furniture, but drama's missing for me, or a bit of jeopardy somehow. Anyway, there's some nice tunes in it, aren't there? So let's go out on one of those from The Queen's Gambit, which is something good we've all seen lately. It's The Vogues and You're the One. See you next week.
Every time we meet, everything is sweet. Oh, you're so tender, I must surrender. My love is your love.